Welcome to Business Authority Radio, bringing you insights from today's thought leaders, professionals, and influencers. With your hosts, Neil Howe and Craig Williams.
Welcome to another edition of Business Authority Radio. This is Craig Williams, and I have Clare Vickery of Grace Cafe and Galleries. Clare, I know there's a number of things that people call you. I would call you a facilitator of visual communication. I would call you a visionary because a lot of the work that you do, you have to have a vision of both sides. You're serving more than the community at large. You're serving more than just the artists. You're serving both at the same time. And of course, you're serving yourself so that you can continue to serve others. But where would you say, and what would you say you would consider yourself in the industry?
So I think probably to define that, one has to start from where one began. And it's very interesting because it's helped define who I am. But Grace Cafe and Galleries began as an art gallery in a small cafe in the atrium of a large historic building, about 8,000 square feet, which was a substantial undertaking, 2 stories. And a major Miami artist literally showed up on our door within 6 months of us opening. We had a lovely, beautiful space ready for action, and Purvis Young was his name, and he changed the whole trajectory of the business. So I had this beautiful vision of an art gallery and a cool cafe, but here comes someone who can actually make it happen. And he was a street artist. Now, interestingly enough, I had my own impressions of art, probably more closer to the classical art. So when this famous Miami street artist, who actually made art out of other people's junk, for lack of a better term, and was at the peak of his career, self-taught, defied every moniker that I understood was fine art. That was amazing. And so within a year, this is truly being blessed, he was selected as the director's choice for the prestigious Art Miami Fair in Miami at the Convention Center before the fair went to the famous tented venue that it's now in Wynwood and so famous for now. But Purvis and I had our little art party, if you will, in 2007, and it was huge. It was huge for him. After the event in 2008, so many other artists came to the gallery, and we started an outdoor festival. We shut down the street. We were in a very sort of cool antique district. We also started selling antiques, and the city became a partner as well in our little venture. And the city filed a grant with the state of Florida, and the gallery began to support classes in the local at-risk elementary schools for after-school art programs. So Purvis, not only in his passion to sell his art, he and I had no idea that we would also be involved in after-school art programs, and that this would go on for many, many years to come, as well as the festival. What also was cool is, again, I was kind of a little bit of a naive girl from the South. I had not worked a lot with other cultures, not regularly. I'd traveled in Italy, traveled Europe, and I was always a tourist maybe on the outside looking into these beautiful places, these beautiful people. So as I started working with Purvis, who was originally from the Caribbean and an American, I started to work with Haitian artists. Now, Haitian artists came to the studio and brought a whole different vibe because Purvis was first or second generation American. These were Haitians born in Haiti that had come to the United States, and they would paint in the studio, and I would get these lovely works. I'd give them space to paint, and we'd sell the works, and I'm telling you, it was like, it's Haitian art like you could never experience. It was beautiful contemporary art. It was nothing like the tradition of the naive work that most people associate with Haitian art, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with the naive style, but these were genius artists who had been told, no, I want you to do the animals and I want you to do this. But I said, no, I want you to create what you want to create. So they were creating these contemporary works that they could have been from Europe. They were exceptional. We were selling Haitian art that defied the moniker of Haitian art. So that was happening. On top of that, if it could get more interesting, the tango community came to the space and they said, we love dancing amongst the arts. Can we have tango milongas and classes? So we had classes in the day and in the evening. We also started to have hip hop recording release parties. Famous documentarians of Florida artists would come and release their screenings. We'd even have geologists who were making films and actually started, this is in its 5th year, the Miami International Science Fiction Festival came and did their screenings. We had scientists, we had musicians. We had a poetry.
You're a true collaborator here.
It was unbelievable. And we also had tap classes. The community churches started renting out the gallery. So in 2011, with all of this kind of going on for 6 years, we formalized the Charitable Arts Center, which is not just on-site, but off-site. And it's a nonprofit that we were able to formalize with IRS approval. Around that time, as the economy sort of, as we all recall how difficult things were, even through 2013 and 14, the art world has changed. And it has probably changed to the point that it may not go back to where things were for 2005 through the problems with the economy in 2008. And one of the things that's changed is millennials and the next generation of buyers. They're not only not buying antiques, but they're also making art, if you will, with their phones. They don't have an understanding or perhaps even appreciation of that which takes hours or days to create, which the older generation with antiques and other fine things, they had an appreciation of paintings. Yeah. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, we're in the process of educating a lot of millennials in our educational programs. If with the way the economies are for them and how we've been speaking about lifestyle changes that everyone's having to make in terms of what's an expectation of a career now, the millennial appreciation of fine art is probably going to be quite different than past generations. So with that knowledge, we have started to change our paradigm. We in season do pop-up galleries or retail fine art that we deem is appropriate for generations at 25 to 55, 65, 75 years old. We try to pick different pieces that will be appropriate. We collaborate with other galleries, which is unheard of because a lot of galleries do not do that unless it's at an art fair. We actually collaborate on site of another gallery with our work, and we advance the dreams of that gallerist wherever they're located with doing events around our collaboration, which allows my nonprofit to come in and, for example, do panels and other things about the area's architecture, the area's environmental and preservation initiatives, and draws in that cultural element into these events that we do in season, which is the winter and the fall in South Florida. What we hope to do is to take that, collaboration and do that. And there's quite a few counties in South Florida where there's a lot of potential art buyers. We want to continue this synergy that we're actually have a show in November that's going to be fabulous with the Jacksonville gallery that's coming down to Fort Lauderdale. Another gallery and myself will be creating a whole collaborative with international muralists, panels and discussions. We think this is a really wonderful thing we'd like to take to other locations. Trying to think if there's one other really cool program that I'm really excited about that are taking multiple years and legs of iterations. There's a project we began in 2015 where we are taking a Shakespeare paradigm, which is like the man was a genius, and there's a reason he's a literary, icon for any
notable,
English
yeah.
and non-English speaking, literary and otherwise.
The power of communication, right?
Amazing. And in short spurts, all in rhyme and rhythm, taking that platform, but kind of deconstructing it. And what we started is a series of projects that take the American history and culture at the time that Shakespeare was writing, and we take a script, for example, like The Tempest, which was the last original work that Shakespeare wrote. And so that was about 1611, about 5 to 8 years before he passed away. So it's 1611 was the date in which many European countries were exploring what? They were exploring the coast of Florida. And they were exploring the coast of the English colonies. Yes. But Florida was very unique because it developed outside of the 13 colonies. So what we're doing with this series of projects is taking different parts of Shakespeare's works and then drawing into scripts aspects of the culture in Florida that have some relevance to the storyline of one of his works. So this year we're actually doing a combined Romeo and Juliet, which was the first work of Shakespeare. Although it was an adaptation, it was not original. It was his first adaptation for the stage, and we are bookending that with his final work, which was The Tempest, creating a 2-part play and then exploring within that dynamic of, a tragic drama and sort of historic anecdotal authors, talk in his own mind about his understanding of the colonial era as he saw it happening, which is what The Tempest is about. Taking those two ideas and then incorporating true, elements of history in Florida at the time of the 1600s as a storyline that's spoken by a narrator in spoken word. Which, by the way, when I was starting to do this back in 2013-14 and saw the Hamilton, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be fabulous. And this was before I knew the guy was onto something, because he was taking American history and incorporating with his own life experience as an immigrant in New York. Yeah. And had written already, in the Heights.
Making it relative to his life and others who could relate to them. And that's where it resonates with other human beings. And you have a platform then to educate them on history, which a lot of us are ignorant of our own history, much less the history of this great country. Wow.
That was... I think there's plenty of room for other people.
It certainly is.
There's a lot of Lin-Manuel dreamers out there who can bring their personal history, their personal learning, and that of the audience together on stage for just something beautiful. So I'm really hoping that whatever this alchemy that we've created, and we're working with folks from the Miami City Ballet when they're not on stage, and that level of talent of ballet, hip-hop, tango from our previous work in the studio, we're incorporating them with choreography on the stage, with local acting companies, and also working with musicians. And Florida has a lot of really great musicians.
Wow. As a visual expressionist of art on canvas yourself, and you seem pretty much like a historian as well, at least in the geography of Florida, this panhandle here. Your management, there seems to be a level of management skills that you carry on into your for-profit side. That has also put you in a position to lead a non-for-profit, which makes you very significant and certainly authority in the community. What's next for you?
Well, we're looking to open another sort of home base, but again, the size of the footprint, it's going to be much smaller. It's going to be
like small groups.
Yeah, not really, but like before, I thought to do something really beautiful and big, you'd have to have an 8,000 square foot building.
Gotcha.
To do big projects, you need to.
So you're talking about a brick and mortar.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
We're going to get a smaller storefront, but we are absolutely bullish on creating projects that we can go to, for example, historical sites, which a lot of historical sites in Florida don't get enough attention. They're beautifully restored. They have even theaters in some, or near theater type spaces with flooring. We are really excited about performing different things like the Shakespeare byproduct, or doing different pop-up gallery retail events at historical sites, and really taking all of that pageantry that's sort of inherent in these beautiful old, properties with their grand gardens, and like the Deering Estate in Miami, which a lot of folks think Vizcaya is game on, and it really is. But if you're ever in Miami, go to the Deering Estate. They were brothers, by the way, two brothers that created both of them. And the Deering, by far for me, is just breathtaking, and it's one of the largest estates on the ocean front at all in South Florida. And it's hard to explain, but it's pastoral without being opulent. Yeah. And they've got an artist program there, and they've got a preservation program, which, by the way, preservation is a big thing we're trying to build into our projects, and things about being knowledgeable about geology and geological patterns, because Florida is unique in that it's fully surrounded by water. And we have our own issues here but they're compelling issues that could be told elsewhere up the coastline. But that's another stage, working with scientists and working with folks that are really doing innovations to produce projects that forward their agenda to that.
You're a catalyst for sustaining, and the other thing I'm interested in is, are you interested in scaling outside of Florida? I know that's enough for you, but the model, are you building a model that we could take to Detroit or a Phoenix, or there's history throughout this great nation, but and some people wonder why there's so much attraction to Florida. Outside of Rhode Island's the only body. I mean, it's an island, but you all have two bodies of water, two different bodies of water. So there's two different types of energy that connects to this state, which I think is unique to any other state. California, I mean, you might have some island off the side, but that's just one body. That's the Pacific.
We would like to take some of our projects and take them in other parts of the country. Detroit is fascinating because Detroit has gone through so much, and people don't really understand. They only hear a little bit about it.
And it's the promised land.
Exactly.
It's the promised land.
It was what started the Industrial Revolution.
Yes, it did.
Essentially for the U.S. So taking, for example, a project up there, but reworking an entire script to incorporate their historical story, but also working with the local advanced placement arts programs. And
the school system, which is, because that is taking a hard hit up in Detroit. And so I love what you've done in not only bridging the gap with community and communities of visual expressionists or artists, but you're also remembering who is coming after us and making sure that lineage and that history is not lost. And I think that's more powerful. That's a more powerful commerce than what we're spending at the store. Because if we don't have our identity, we don't know who we are, it's easy to lose sight of where we are and where we're going. And sometimes the history that we're repeating is not the history we want to repeat. And
the artists that produce the music, what we can do, because now we have technology, is at the end of productions, even let's say it's Detroit or it's in LA, whatever, whatever's produced can be downloaded at $1, whatever, $2. And we want to produce things that are on that level so that people want to remember that and download it right on the site. They can purchase some of the art that's produced on the stage. We have visual graffiti artists that are participating in some of these programs. But we just want it to be also a place where we think the pricing and the millennials are, that they can take something home with them that's not a T-shirt necessarily, but maybe it's an element that inspired them. Something tangible. On stage. Yeah, and not just virtual. What would you tell a Clare 20 years younger? What would you tell that Clare Vickery 20 years younger going into this? I mean, it seems as though you're living in your passions. And I say passions because, you're using both your right and your left side of your brain. So I think that's what I would tell any young man or young woman. There is a tendency to make an assumption that, number one, that women are not so good at math and science. And that was an assumption that was pressed upon me. But again, I'm over 50 and I don't think girls are going through that right now. Yeah. That don't think because it was difficult, because it may be more difficult for you than a young man for whatever reason. It was incredibly difficult for me to process. But the literary side just flowed. So go with what flows, but do not by any means step away from the thing that's difficult, because it may be later in life that when your other side of your brain, because I took advanced engineering when I did go to graduate school, and I remember this teacher thought I was crazy, and I said, look, I know I may not make an A, but I'm going to get through this. And by golly, I got a B+, and I had not even taken college math. But my mind had gotten to the point that I could, and I was older, I could decipher and see patterns that as a young kid I was too intimidated to, and so I distracted, shut down my brain. And the teachers were more than willing to let me shut down my brain because they made an assumption back then that women weren't good in math and science. So that's number one. I would say that. Number two, there is statistical evidence that confidence levels in young girls are lower than young men. Okay, that may be the case, but if there's parents listening or younger people listening, you've just got to believe that even if people are telling you you're not good enough, that you are.
Yes.
That God has a purpose for you.
Yes, yes.
And you are going to find it, and don't give up. And especially for young women, it's not defined by your exterior, but your interior. And we work a lot with at-risk girl groups. PACE girl groups is is a national. And again, parents tell you, because some of these beautiful women that you even see in the pages of a magazine, but if you never make it even, they didn't have pleasant high schools, but their parents made them stay strong and develop your mind.
And it still takes a village. You know, some of us aren't always privileged with either a parent that is desirable or parents. But it does take a village. So I think we all have a responsibility to encourage and reach back to that generation that we were once, and help them help you, because that's what's happening. If we help those behind us, you're helping yourself.
And that third thing I would say is, just on that line, is even when you feel you've got nothing to give something that you have, which is either it's your talent, your time, or in some cases your treasure. If you have $5, believe it or not, somehow God can make that work exceptionally. So you never know. If you think you've got nothing, don't, because sometimes you'll get such a blessing out of just giving of those three things. So give back, because it will make a difference.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Clare, it's been a pleasure sharing some of your story. Who would you say is your target market on your for-profit side, and who is that?
Well, we are. I mean, again, and humility is like a huge thing. I can say that we're working with some. I mean, when I was working with Purvis, or even preceding artists or subsequent artists, we're now working with some, international muralists. Now, murals are very popular, so selling their smaller works can be challenging. But these are international names, so our clientele. And also with, our regular gallery artists, we sell to some of the, the 2 and 3 and 4 percenter, some exceptional wealth.
So you come in more as a consultant and advocate for the consumer of the art.
For the collector.
Yeah, the collector.
We work with collectors. We also try to sell to the middle class. So a big part of our middle class sales comes from these fairs and these public events where the middle class feels more able to, it's more accessible to them. Typically the wealthier clientele, they want to come personally, have an appointment, etc. So the fun part of it is really both, but the real fun is the panel discussions, the big public events where there's a lot of information being shared and art being sold.
And bringing business to those communities too. That's powerful. Clare Vickery, Grace Cafe and Galleries. Tell us how we could get in touch with you. What type of social media are you on? Telephone numbers you want to share? Yeah. We'll have it in the show notes as well, but share how we can get in touch with you.
Sure. So, by the way, and my husband, Troy, has been amazing since 2012. I need to give a shout out to him.
Please do. Us husbands need that. Yeah. We know that behind every good man, there's a great woman, but I don't know how that goes in reverse.
Well, there could be a good man behind a great woman.
The curtain.
Yeah. Drop the mic. Yeah.
So there's two websites, because one is we're two distinct different entities, which we have to be legally, and it's the best way to do it. The Grace Cafe and Galleries is just that, www.grace, GRACE, as in unmerited favor, which everything we do we want to bring.
Thank God for
Cafe, CAFE, and spelled out AND. And then the plural of gallery, which is galleries, because we had every intention that we would not just be one gallery.
Global.
Yep. www.gracecafeandgalleries.com. The art center is www.grace, again, unmerited favor, arts, as in the plural of art, center.org.
Gotcha.
And the phone number is 954-816-3324 for both. And Facebook is a conglomerate name because it's a cultural concept that we're really trying to create here with the business of arts and the charitable service through the arts. And that's called Grace Arts FL. FL can stand for either Fort Lauderdale, which is where we're based, or Florida, which is the acronym for Florida.
Brilliant. I
Grace
love
Arts
creativity and innovation. Thank you so much, Claire.
You've been listening to Business Authority Radio with Neil Howe and Greg Williams. To learn more about the resources mentioned in today's show or to listen to past episodes, visit businessauthorityradio.com.